Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with David Glass. He's got a company called GAS Global. Welcome, David.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. So GAS Global, first, tell me about the name and tell me about what you do.
Okay, well, GAS Global, actually, GAS stood for the three original founders back in 1970. One of them was Glass. Another one was by a man by the name of Hoot Austin. I mean, if you're in Texas, Hoot Austin sounds like a great name.
That is awesome.
And the third guy, Jack Spiro, and the other two gentlemen were no longer involved by the early 70s, such that it
Okay.
was only my father. But, you're in Houston, you're in the oil and gas industry. GAS seems to be a pretty appropriate name. And the company was founded in 1970. As of Friday, it was 55 years old.
Wow, that's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, so the other part of the joke is that I usually tell everybody that the house actually started in Sharpstown, the Sharpstown area of Houston, Southwest Houston. And the business actually started out of our house. My parents used to have a telephone in their bedroom. So my big joke was that GAS was founded in the bedroom in 1970, and I was founded in the bedroom in 1967.
That is awesome. Hopefully, they weren't talking on the phone when they were founding. Like
Well, I mean,
multitasking.
who knows? Maybe I don't want. I don't want to know.
You don't want to think too much
No,
about that.
no. Nobody likes to think about their parents
So 55
like
years
that.
in business, that defies most of the percentages of businesses lasting. What do you attribute? Like, what's been the secret to success?
Well, I would say the primary secrets. Well, I mean, if we went with one or two, um, adaptability. Over time, we have tried to change up our business to reflect how business is operated. So my father and my mother operated the business for the first 25 to 30 years to about early mid 90s, and then I started in 1989. So actually, this is year 36 for me. And so how they operated um, through the 80s was certainly very different. Well, it's certainly very different from how things were operated into the 90s and 2000s. Now it would be, well, truly night and day. I'm not sure my father would recognize many pieces of it, except for the fact that ultimately it's about finding the right people to go do the right jobs. So adaptability, stubbornness.
Hmm.
Yeah, stubbornness is really had a waiter um, a few months ago. He's saying, what is it that what is your secret? Says you get used to getting kicked and then you get back up. If you're a business owner of any length of time, in enough time period, you're going to have bad things happen, and you just have to will it to make it keep going. It just is what it is.
Stubbornness.
Yeah, I mean, really, you have to be stubborn. Some people might even think deranged, but stubborn could be deranged in a more serious manner.
Yeah, deranged. I like it. It's like when I was pursuing my wife. I wouldn't have called it stalking, but some could have called it stalking. So
Well, it worked out.
it worked out. I mean, it was a win-win, or at least it was a win for me because
Right.
she finally agreed to marry me 30 plus years ago. Okay, so I like
Oh,
that
nice.
stubbornness and that attitude. I've heard a lot of business owners say the why. So if you have a why behind your business and the reason for the stubbornness to keep going after you're just getting kicked and knocked down, that's the key ingredient. Do you agree? And if so, what was your real why? What was your moving kind of motivating factor?
Well, I mean, I was always very competitive as a kid. So, when you're a kid, your parents, have to get on your case about, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. That was never typically the issue for me. I was good enough about beating myself up that my father finally figured out, I really don't have to say anything to him because he's going to do a good enough job beating himself up. So you know, very competitive. So that would probably be the why. The other part of the competitive story I like to tell is, so I've been married 37 years. And so shortly after we got married, my wife had always thought I was just this most pleasant person. And a couple of months after we were married, I was playing softball while I was still at college, and I hit a ball, started running around the bases, got all the way, made it to home, but I had run kind of far out of the path on the way home, and the umpire called me out for that, not because I was tagged, but for that.
Hmm.
And my wife had never seen me get mad, and another level of mad, and foul words, all sorts of bad things were said, and I probably threatened, certain things, but so yes, uh, fairly competitive.
Yeah, so competition is a big driver that keeps you
Yes.
going. I also caught in there that your dad figured out how to motivate you, and isn't that so critical with team? It's like what's the best way to motivate folks? Is it by pressing on them? Is it by letting them motivate themselves? Like what are the different styles? I don't know if you've seen that with your team.
It's D, all of the above. So I mean, it's kind of like your kids. You have to learn what motivates them and what demotivates them, and you try and hope that you're hitting the right buttons to actually get them to do what you need them to do, and actually what they need to do for their own benefit. That's not always easy. Some people, and I mean, there's certain people in times in their life where they're not in a position to be motivated. I mean, we've
Mm.
all gone through stretches where life was difficult. They had issues in their personal life. So I mean, you have to factor that in. But to me, it's D, all of the above, and you have to read who you're dealing with,
Yeah,
like your
that's
kids.
great. So when you're looking for and you deal with oil and gas,
Mhm.
which is super handy with the name, like that's right, Gas Global,
Yeah, 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 guessing. Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
convenient. So what's your how do you when you're dealing with your companies, how do you counsel them to be great leaders, or how do you counsel them? Because if you're staffing people in their companies, you want the companies to succeed and have a good experience, and you want the employees to succeed and have a good experience. So what's your kind of counsel to them?
Well, so one of the things that we started 3 years ago was we started looking at ways to make the businesses more autonomous, where it did not require such level of involvement or intervention from myself and from my wife. And so we started setting up leadership training programs. We wanted to do it at the top level, but we were also trying to develop the second and third tier levels. And we've been largely successful at that. Sadly, because of the downturn in several of the industries we service, we've kind of had to postpone that. But yes, putting an emphasis on training, and again, kind of like with motivation, leadership is also varied based upon the individuals. Um, so, not every leader can be the exact same type of person. So you have to find out what their strengths are and how they can lead from that strength.
Yeah, that's good. Lead from your strengths, and then surround yourself with people that complement your weaknesses.
Yeah. I mean, that's um, for those of us who have very few weaknesses. Uh, no, no, you do try to hire and you try to staff to your weaknesses. So yes. So no, uh, we've gotten to the point when we first started this about 6 years ago, because 6 years ago, pre-COVID, 17, 18, was when my wife and I had come to the conclusion that yes, figuring out how we wanted things to run to where I mean, we're 58 years old. We're not old, but we're not young. So we need to have the next level of people doing things. And so we started a conscientious process of doing that. And we've had a fair level of success. Actually, the nice thing is that when business picks up, we think we're well positioned to really take advantage of the situation because we've trained, the first level, the second level, and we're at the third level where when you bring people down in below them, it should move fairly quickly.
I love it. I think it's something that I've realized, when I spent most of my life in corporate, and something we did intentionally was figuring out, okay, who's the next person that's going to take my job? And not just one, but three. And then who are the people below them that could take their jobs? And then giving them opportunities to grow in their current position, training them for the next position, people that aspire to do great things. And so you have a succession plan, and it gives you a deeper team, and it also gives your people a career path to know that they actually have a place to go, and that's good for
Yes.
stickiness for the employee, and trying to help them get where they want to go as well.
Well, and that goes to your motivation piece. Because, yeah, motivation requires something to be motivated toward. And yes, certainly career advancement, um, obviously increased compensation, um, more challenges. I mean, certainly most people, uh, you want to be able to give them, uh, greater and greater challenges. Now you have to reach the point where, okay, can they actually take the next step?
Yes.
Because I mean,
Yeah.
over the years, one of the mistakes we've made is we've had some really great people who were not really in a position to take the next step for a variety of reasons. Maybe they personally weren't ready for that, um, or it's a different mindset. Um, and so recognize that as quickly as possible, which is not always easy, and then trying to back them up to where they were very successful, and then for them to appreciate the fact that you're successful here, you don't want to go here.
Yeah, it's a great one.
That's a
I,
real
I
challenge.
use sales is a great example. Their top salesperson isn't necessarily your best manager,
Yeah,
and
no, frequently the other way, or
yeah,
not, absolutely not the best manager, but it's
yeah, and
something we all do.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I guess my other example, I had a mentor, and he told me don't over promote yourself. So us as people, if we're in that environment, we got to be self aware enough to really decide if we just because there's an opportunity there that's a career advancement on title doesn't mean we necessarily want to take that opportunity because it might not be right for us. We might not love it. We don't want to over promote ourselves into a job that we're not going to like.
right. Yeah, because it takes different skill sets. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just different gig. Okay, so
Yes.
how do you find you're sourcing people? How do you find great people, and how do you know they're great people?
Well, sourcing, the ideal situation, and I compare it to the Kevin Bacon game, if you remember the 5 degrees of separation.
Yeah,
The ideal situation is that it's a friend of a friend. Um, and, traditionally within the oil and gas space, that was one of our primary methods of recruiting, because even though it's a big industry, usually somebody knows somebody. And so there's that piece of it. But then, there's a number of roles and positions because we are now being asked to recruit things that we've never seen before. My favorite example, and this is when I knew that the industry had changed fairly significantly, was we had a client request a truck washer in North Dakota. Now, now North Dakota has 3% unemployment. I mean, they've had that for 10, 15 years. But you're being asked, okay, so what skill sets does it take to require to wash trucks in North Dakota? But I mean, it was a real order. We had to do it, and we had to try and fulfill it. We probably were not successful, but so number one, you're going off of your network, your friends, your relationships, and then number two, once you're starting to um, have to look for things that are not common. We have a database of probably 1.5 million people in our system. Um, over the years, we've advertised, we've posted, we've done all these different things, and so yeah, actually. we have quite a large database just because our database actually was first started in 1994, 95, somewhere in
Wow.
that time period. Um, and actually, the person who's second command for GAS, that was her first job. Was She was scanning resumes back in 94,
Wow.
95, 96, somewhere in that time period. It's been a while.
That's crazy. That's amazing too. Also, uh, I spent enough time in South Dakota, and I sure don't want to wash trucks in South Dakota or North Dakota anytime. 'Cause
I
that's a lot.
I assumed it was not a winter-based job. Okay, in the summertime you can. Yeah, no, no. There's probably not a whole lot of washing in the winter.
Well, you got two seasons. You've got road construction season and you got winter. Those are your two seasons. So, there's no fall, no spring. Those are the
Yeah,
two you got. So
uh,
that's probably a summer job. Yeah. All right. So
yeah.
talk to me about then, how do you know somebody's right for a job? Like, what do you do? I mean, you interview people, but how do you know that they're going to be are there like go-to questions you have, or what's your method?
So internally, I allow others to ask all the relevant technical stuff. Okay, do you know how to use this? And you have to how to do that. I typically ask more not personal questions per se, but it's actually just to kind of get to know people, to where you can kind of try to understand where they're coming from. Got kids, not that it's relevant, because some of my best employees have been, or best people have been, single parents. So it really has no relevance, but it kind of, you do it to try and understand where people are and how they got to where they are in 30 minutes. Um, the problem with hiring and recruiting is that ultimately people are going to put their best foot forward. I've never seen anybody say, "Yeah, I'm a real jerk. I'm just going to be a gossip, and I'm going to do all these things to make your life miserable." I've never found anybody who's told me that up front. Um, Although I did have one young lady years and years ago. She was so apologetic in her interview to where, I mean, I didn't hire her, but it's like, okay, Garrett, you need to think positively of yourself, and you really need to go. So I was like, I switched from, okay, I'm not hiring you, but here's the things that you need to do in order to get hired.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, no clue whatever happened to her. I hope, who knows, maybe yeah, who knows, but yeah, there is no, people hide the things that are going to be the cause of their, and in some instances it's not even that they're hiding it, it's because they don't even understand or appreciate that about themselves.
Hmm. Yeah.
um I sat at a dinner table 2 nights ago, and I was listening to these two individuals talking, and I'm thinking, oh my god, I'm so happy you don't work for me. All they did was whine and complained about, this person did this and this person did that, and oh my gosh, they were, just terrible people. Oh my God, don't send me your resume, please.
That's so great. So I always agree. This is my counsel to people. It's like, if you're hiring somebody, that's the best they're ever going to be. It's just like,
Mhm.
when you're courting somebody for marriage, that's the best they're ever going to be. If they bring you flowers once a week when you're courting, they're going to bring you flowers once a month when you're married. I think it's the same with hiring,
Mhm.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
if you've got some, wonkiness, or you got something in your gut that's telling you that they're not quite right, don't ever hire them. Don't ever settle for somebody that you got a weird feeling about, or that doesn't impress you in the interview.
So basically, what you're saying is that my wife probably, if she had known, might not have married me.
Literally, my wife has. Well, no, she has not said she wouldn't marry me, but we've counseled people that are getting married. We're like, look, dude, if you're expecting more, or you think you're gonna fix him, you're not. The same stuff you
Right.
argue about now will probably be arguing about 30 years from now. So it's very funny.
Largely. Yeah. Largely. I mean, we do
Likely.
improve. We evolve. We mature in many respects, or you hope that you are. But yeah, yeah, those basic personality traits do kind of come back and spades.
They do. So okay, I got to ask you about this. What do you think is the biggest kind of evolution of people and hiring, considering what's going on in the world today?
Well, so I guess it was about a year or so ago. I was at lunch with a friend slash client of mine, and we were talking about things. And he mentioned, they said, "Well, David, your business really isn't probably going to exist in 5 years." Damn, that's kind of rough.
Yeah.
I said, you know, so I thought about it, and he's a younger guy, a millennial, and so okay, I mean, certainly as a Gen X person, obviously I have a slightly different perspective, but okay, let's think about what he said. So then I came to the conclusion, okay, so number one, either it's my business goes away because the type of service we provide is not needed, or the worst one is that, well, there's no employees working, so why do I need you? Because if
Mm,
AI is able to do this, or this, why are we hiring people? If we aren't hiring people, then you're not needed.
mm,
So to me, the biggest challenge in the next, well, in in perpetuity, I think that's the correct way of phrasing it, is that um, effectively, society goes through changes on a periodic basis. I mean, if you think about it, when entered the industrial age, people left the farms and went into the factories and into the cities. And I suspect that what we're facing is actually equal to that with AI and its capabilities. Certainly, you're seeing it hit a number of sectors much well. It's impacting them now. Certainly, the IT sector is facing. Well, if you're an employee in certain areas, it's challenging. If you're a programmer slash developer, um, 5 years ago, you were in high demand, 5, 7 years ago. Now, because of AI and because of a lot of the code now starting to be generated by AI, um, yeah, it's a real issue. My youngest son is a director of an AI company focused on the legal market, and we've talked about how what percentage of code is now being generated by outside by AI. Of course, you look 10, 15 years ago as being potentially being done by Indians or someone in so to some extent I'm almost kind of curious if it's impacting them worse than
oh,
it
interesting.
is Americans, because ultimately you'll still have to have design. You'll still probably have some level of higher level of coding. This is just my speculation.
Yeah.
But for the day-to-day slinging code to make this button do this, that will actually be done by AI.
Wow. Okay. So AI. Okay. So this kid, millennial, told you that AI was going to, in effect, put you out of business.
Yes.
You mentioned coding. I think that makes a lot of sense because that's something that AI can learn and automate and make systems talk.
Yes.
So how do you, as an employee, make yourself AI proof?
Well, as an employee, one of the things that I think is going to be the biggest shift, and I'm actually planning on doing more conversations about this, is that I actually think it's a positive in the sense that for much of the last 20 years ish, IT and legal have put everybody into very hamster paths, to where there wasn't a lot of thinking. Basically, if the system didn't allow you to do it, you just couldn't do it. I believe that one of the things that will happen is that employees will start becoming conductors. They'll be managing AI agents and other things to do a broader spectrum of tasks. Now, having said that, what it means is that you'll need fewer people to do those specialized tasks. But my belief is that it's going to require people who have a more general knowledge. Whereas I described it to my youngest son, a couple of weeks ago, yes, you need to be able to understand the specific area you're in, HR, IT, as far as understand the concepts of code. But I actually think you're going to have some level of understanding on business practices. I think
Mm.
I jokingly said, "Hey, you might actually need to. Wouldn't be a bad thing to know Saint Augustine, and some of the philosophical teachings." I I actually think this is potentially a positive, but it's going to be very disruptive, and it's going to mean that some people are going to, it's going to be change.
Yeah. So the question is, so I like what you said, just to back up, that employees, if they are almost more generalists and have a broader array of knowledge of different disciplines in whatever industry or any industry, they can problem solve and direct the AI agents. In other words, like there
Yes,
still has to be somebody that's behind this, asking the right questions and telling the folks where we want to go. Whether
and
the
there'll be a conductor. And
Yes,
think of a conductor as someone who, I'm sure they can probably play the piano and a few other instruments, but they're not going to be the best at any of them.
yeah,
But they have an understanding and appreciation of all the instruments and how they all tie together, and how to harmonize them or make into a beautiful piece of music. That's what
yeah.
a conductor does.
How to take the most out of everything and put it together to get something that's more beautiful than the sum of any other parts.
Yes, certainly
Yeah,
my singing. Yeah, we don't want to include my singing in that part, or even me playing any kind of instrument. Yes.
well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
beautiful. All right, so then thinking about that, what does that mean for the employment market, in your opinion?
Well, so as part of what my conclusions are, my friend I think was largely wrong. Um, and especially for certain segments, for the energy sector, I think it's actually going to be the opposite. AI and data centers and all the huge demand that it's placing upon the power generation capacity of the United States and other locations is actually a huge opportunity. So I suspect, and then you're seeing this in a number of things where the announcement of all these different power plants that are going to be built. One that was released like a month or so ago, um, NRG, which is the one of the power generation companies in the Houston area. And other parts of the United States, and GE Vernova, who builds the turbines to generate the electricity, and a construction or an EPC, engineering procurement construction company, by the name of Kiewit, that those three were going to partner together for building 4 power plants. But there's been quite a few others that have been announced. I mean, I think everybody saw where was it Meta was going to restart, or Microsoft was going to restart 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania. And they're talking about how they're going to build these small nuclear power plants and how they're going to do this and how they're going to do that. It's because in order to do all the AI things that we want to do, is going to require, I don't know, doubling the electrical generation capacity of the United States in the next 10 years.
That's
So,
amazing. So if
yeah, it's
you're in energy and you've got a way to either get power or an alternative means to generate power, and then all the sub industries that come under that, which are a ton of it, there's a huge opportunity.
yes. So the immediate future for people who are in those segments, any part of that food chain will see significant opportunity in the next 5, 7 years. At some point in time, now some of those pieces, it's the capital projects. Maybe at some point in time, that's now starting to be taken over by AI. Although most of the work is actually physical. It's construction. It's uh, pipe. It's pumps and all the instrumentation. Well, the instrumentation, I guess some of it could be done in a manufacturing facility where there's more robots, but that requires manufacturing to really retool its capabilities, which I think is already kind of in place, or they're working towards it, but that day has not arrived. So yeah, I'm for the energy sector, I'm pretty bullish. For other sectors, like I said, the IT sector, longer term, I actually am bullish on the IT sector because this is not their first go round.
Hmm.
We had Y2K, if you remember that one,
Yeah, oh yeah.
and a lot of people got laid off after that. And then you've had several fairly large dips in the IT sector, and they've always come back stronger. And even in the IT sector, it's my guess and my prediction that what you'll end up seeing is that um, so when a company decides, okay, we're going to design a system, we're going to write code in order to fix this process. There's certain returns of investment that are required in order to do it. My gut feeling is that okay, maybe 5 years ago it made no sense to do this project because it's just too expensive relative to your potential benefit. So okay, they do all these other things, but now my gut says is that okay, now it might cost $30,000 to do this, and maybe it automates a part of your business that you're spending a significant amount of time. You couldn't justify it spending $200,000, but if you can do it for 30,000, sure.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think it really does. It's going to free up. Automation doesn't necessarily mean firing people. It can mean freeing up capital or freeing up human resources to do other work,
Yes.
to be more competitive in the market, right?
Yes, but it just means that we actually have to start looking at what those possibilities are because, yeah, again, it made no sense to do the $30,000 project or the thing cost you 200,000 maybe 5 years ago, but now it's cheaper because between the individual and AI, there's probably a lot more of those small projects that nobody's ever touched.
Yes. I think the other thing you said that's really important that I've really been thinking about a lot, and that is the physical stuff, the trades, fixing cars, all those things. You still got to do that. You still got to dig. You got to have, you got to dig a trench and you got to put a pipe down and you got to have people to do those things. And you got to have an engineer to draw that up, and you've got to make sure it's done right on the ground as you're doing it. All those things. I've got a pipe lifting client. They lift pipelines is what they do. You still got to lift the pipeline because this thing's still going to settle. And if it's in service for 20 years and it's supposed to be out of service and it's still there, you got to lift it. Like there's a lot of those things that I feel like getting back to those types of industries and running or owning businesses in those types of industries or working in those types of industries is actually going to be a really good gig, honestly.
Oh, I agree. But I would say in 10 to 15 years, it'll be robots that are doing decent chunks of that work you just talked
Some of
about.
that.
Yeah, I mean, um, a robot is a physical manifestation of AI. So, um, a robot, and watching it goes, you kind of watch videos and see who's doing what. I mean, certainly Tesla and the Optimus, and then the Boston Dynamics. Um, their the scale, the range of movement continues to improve, such that can they be as dexterous as us? Yeah, I would think that's very possible. They can learn. I like to visualize it as the Matrix thing, where they stick the thing into the back of us, or I guess a robot, although it's receiving it, I guess, through Wi-Fi, and it learns how to weld you
Hmm.
know uh so in 10 to 15 years, yeah, I think that's a decent probability that some of the manual tasks will start being done. My guess is that we'll see kind of like what I just mentioned on the IT side, where you'll still have people involved, it'll just be lesser numbers
Yeah, doing different tasks.
doing different
Uh,
tasks. But we're all, because and then this is Elon Musk's big thing, because the economy is much larger, we're actually attacking a lot more things that we never even thought to address.
yeah, so it's
So
acceleration of change, and that can result in a lot more problems being solved.
yeah, I mean, just think of, when we drive around, okay, we talk about Sugar Land. Sugar Land happens to be well maintained, but oh my God, most of the country is not. You drive in various places and you think, oh my God, can somebody please fix this stuff?
Yes.
Um, and if you could have it done by robots, and it's done much more cheaply, um, then yes, that would make sense. I like to visualize it as, okay, we all remember in Star Wars, there's the little robots that are on the ground. I assume that, you never know what they actually do. I guess they clean the floors, but they're all, running around while they're in the Death Star. Um, so I assume we're going to have all sorts of little robots running around Sugarland and wherever doing things that, um, hopefully it'll beautify. Hey, if it could weed my flower beds, oh my God, or weed the roads along our freeways. What a wonderful thing.
Yeah, you could have all that autonomous mowers out there and
Yeah,
kinds of
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
right? You
I
know.
mean, it doesn't mean now. Then there's the other part of my theory on this is that um, one of the positive out of this is that so in the 60s is really when we started seeing the two family income.
Okay.
Where, well, I mean, it started. It started in World War II in order to meet production needs for the war. The Rosie the Riveter.
Yep.
And so female participation in the workforce started increasing fairly dramatically, and it peaked into I think it's still going up into the 70s and 80s. But maybe it's a situation where there's, and if there's a married couple, maybe only one, or maybe one works part time. So, there's a possibility that one of the side benefits, because as a result of the two, effective requirement of two people working, greater stress on the marriage. As a Gen X, we were the latchkey kids,
Hmm.
where basically, we all had keys to get into our house, and so we walked home from school and went home to an empty house. I mean, we turned out fine, I think, largely. I mean, the psychiatry sessions have helped, but yeah, it's that's all part of. Um, those are We don't know what the impact is. I mean, for anybody, I mean, I'm speculating, but I could see how there could be positives out of
Yeah, I think that's a really good takeaway. Like, with every, you can look at it as, oh crap, there's not going to be jobs, or you can look at it as like, oh, we can accomplish so much more and be competitive and solve problems and fight world hunger and have everybody have fresh water. Like, there's a lot of things we
it.
can do
Yes.
with this extra capacity of problem solving.
Hmm.
And if we do that, if we use it for good, not evil, we use our powers for good, not evil. We're gonna be
Yeah.
we're gonna be in a great brand new world that'll be awesome.
Yeah, I think some of the guys who've been around this for a period of time, um, I think the guy who was one of the original founders, I can't remember his name, yeah, it's probably like a 20-30% chance it kills us all. And I think Elon Musk was like, that's probably about 10%. So yeah, I mean, you know, um, but then you start going into, the old sci-fi of Asimov, who talked about the three rules. It was in that movie. What was the movie with Will Smith? Uh, I, Robot,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
where they all had to be imbued with the three rules. Number one, you can't harm a human. Number two, I don't remember the three rules. Okay, but
Yeah.
you follow what I'm getting at.
Yep.
Then there's the moral complexity of, well, what if situations are not exactly like that? And how
Hmm.
does it address that?
Yeah.
So
That's
moral
crazy.
complexity.
Crazy stuff. Well, this has been awesome. I want to ask you just if thank you for the wisdom, and I appreciate the insights on AI too. So, if you have one piece of advice for somebody that's starting out a business, what would that piece of advice be?
Well, depending upon the type of business, I mean, certainly those that, where it is more of a sweat equity, you're starting a restaurant. Well, uh, certainly be prepared for a lot of work. Expect that your plans will not go according to plan. But it doesn't mean, you can still be very successful. Things never go as they're planned. And then if you're expecting to do a business where, which is really probably one of my biggest mistakes, is we were very aggressive a few years ago on trying to grow the business and trying to do it off of internal working capital. The reality was is that it had to be the absolute best case scenario, and it just made things very challenging for us and for me. So anybody starting a business, understand what you're doing, or what you're getting yourself into, and expect a lot of hard work. But it can be very rewarding. I mean, the reality is that I probably would have sucked as an employee. Um, so as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate that maybe I am ADD. My wife has been saying this for a while. Um, I'm really good at doing a lot of different stuff, but really don't like to do one thing consistently.
Hmm.
So actually, maybe when I talk about AI and the future, maybe it's because I'm hoping that's the way it is, because it actually plays to my strengths.
I love it. Well,
So
yeah, I think the idea of, hey, look, starting a business is going to take twice as long. It's going to be twice as hard, and it's
mhm,
going to take twice as much money as you thought it was. Is
yes,
probably good
yeah,
advice, right?
yeah,
Like,
I would agree. It's never. I'm waiting to write a business plan where it actually does what I said. That day has not happened. Oh God, no. So,
uh, well, hey, David, I appreciate you, and congratulations on a company that's clearly been highly successful. And obviously, you and your wife have been a huge part of that. And I wish you the best, and I know you're going to keep doing great things in the future.
well, thank you.
And just thankful to be able to spend time with you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, have a great day.
Thank you.